Ricoh.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We have something very special planned. I know you got those emails, so here we are. We basically wanted to break down the pre-treatment process for you. So welcome to the Ricoh and iGroup Technologies mini series for the VIPER machines. So I wanted to introduce, first of all, Brian Walker from iGroup Technologies. He'll tell you guys a little bit more about what we're going to be doing here. But first of all, my name is Hazel Mitchell. I am the Sales and Marketing Director here at Ricoh DTG. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with our Ricoh RI1000 and RI2000 machines. But today, again, we wanted to focus a little bit more on education on why pre-treatment is important and how do we get the best pre-treatment. And the only company to partner with when it comes to that is, of course, iGroup Technologies. So here we are with Brian Walker.
Thank you for having us be a part of this webinar. And we really wanted to help Ricoh and the new direct-to-garment printers find out that pre-treating is not as scary as it can be made out to be, and how we can help make that transition from not printing shirts to printing DTG a lot easier. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Pre-treatment is the foundation of the shirt for the direct-to-garment print itself. And you do need to do it correctly. And we can go into a lot of great detail on the who's, the what's, and the why's, and the how's. But for this video, for the newbies that are just getting into direct-to-garment, we're going to touch on the basics so that you can be successful. And we wanted to talk about a lot of different things in relation to pre-treatment to get you started off on the right foot.
Thank you. That's great. That's perfect. And you know what? Why don't we first start off by answering the question, Brian? And I know this is a question you're probably asked very often, but what is pre-treat? What is that process?
Pre-treat is where all the magic happens in direct-to-garment printing. And everybody asks, do we really need to pre-treat? And the answer to that is generally yes, if you're printing white ink on a colored shirt. If you're just printing on a white shirt, a lot of times you don't have to pre-treat, but pre-treating even the white shirts for CMYK only printing can help significantly, and we'll take a look at some examples here in a little bit in regards to that. But you can think of pre-treating as primering drywall. Before you go to do your final paint job on a new room that you're maybe building, you typically would add primer to the wall so that the paint doesn't soak into the drywall. Pre-treatment for direct-to-garment printing does basically the same thing. And as an example and illustration is we have this shirt right here that shows this side is being pre-treated and this side over here not pre-treated. As you can see, what we ended up doing was pre-treating the one side of the shirt, and the other side had absolutely none. So if you think about it, you primer your drywall, or if you don't primer your drywall, your paint will soak in and it won't look real well. That's the same thing that we get when we don't pre-treat or pre-treat incorrectly with direct-to-garment printing.
That's perfect. Actually, and I love that you touched on do we need to pre-treat light garments? So to your answer to that, that's perfect. You don't have to, but will it help with color vibrancy? Absolutely. And I hate to put you on the spot here, Brian, but do you have an example of a light colored garment that has been pre-treated and not pre-treated?
Yes, we do. Actually, if we can get the second camera to switch over here, we have actually several examples. This one right here is a 100% cotton shirt, and you can see here that the left side is not pre-treated and the right side is. And I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on camera, but as you can see here, the yellows are more bright, it's more defined than it is on the untreated side. Now, to really give a great example, we will pull up this one here, which is a 100% polyester shirt. Again, this side is pre-treated, this side is not. What ends up, yeah, if hopefully you can really see that with our lighting and everything here in the cameras. But what ends up happening with the pre-treatment, your inkjet printer prints billions and billions and billions of dots onto the shirt to provide the correct colors, right? So you have your black, cyan, magenta, and yellow. And what ends up happening is all these dots are positioned so that when your eye looks at it, they blend together to create a color. So say on like a red or an orange or even this yellow, your typical yellow is going to be made up of a little bit of obviously the yellow portion of the CMYK, but also probably some red and maybe a little black depending on the color of or shade of yellow that you're trying to get. What happens in direct-to-garment printing on typically a white shirt without pre-treatment is those dots are spaced out, but as soon as the ink hits the shirt, it tends to what we call dot gain. The dots get bigger. And because of that, they spread and can intermingle with other adjoining dots, which will create secondary colors. So if you remember the old baggy commercial, yellow and blue make green, zip, you zip lock it and you know it's sealed when you see the green. It's the same type of thing with direct-to-garment. These dots, as they grow, will intermix with each other, which is not necessarily what you want. And a lot of times when you have major dot gain, such as on the polyester, because we're using water-based inks and the dots want to really, polyester wicks moisture away, so your dots really, really grow and can grow up towards 900% in size, diameter. Well, that'll cause problems because you'll get secondary colors maybe that were not intentional, but if you have 3 colors, you can get tertiary colors also, which can make the image look muddy. So the pre-treatment on a white shirt allows for brighter, richer, more vibrant colors and a lot sharper images because you're holding those dots in place. Plus, when done correctly, it will also improve wash durability.
And if we could go back and zoom back into that gecko photo, I just wanted to point out a couple things there. While we're looking at this gecko, the couple things I wanted to point out, if you're looking at the tail, if you're just looking at the tail with the yellow dots compared to the green, look how clear and crisp that looks versus if you go to his arm, the part that's not pre-treated, you can barely tell that there's yellow dots there. And that's exactly what Brian was talking about with the color mingling. It looks fine. And to the naked eye, when you're looking at this image, it still looks great. And if we didn't tell you that one side wasn't pre-treated, you probably wouldn't know. But when you really look into it, when you become the experts that we are, you can start seeing that there is a huge difference between the side, even just with the word beach and shark. And I'll let Brian explain what he's pointing out there.
Here, just showing this is pure black. And the pure black, if you can see the difference here between untreated and treated, in the close-up, it is a significant difference. The black is a richer black. It's more robust and crisp and clean. So your black in and of itself is going to look a lot better, as well as any of the other colors in the image itself. just everything in general, and I think we can see this here, is the line is right here. The yellow and red and black are much brighter, whereas over here they tend to bleed in a little bit to each other. And that is sort of the whole concept. Again, going back to why do we pre-treat? It's to give our customers the best possible product that you can give them. And by doing that, you can gain repeat customers, which is business self-sustainability, viability, and allows you to grow. The old adage of garbage in, garbage out applies not just to artwork, but also how you process your direct-to-garment print. And again, the whole importance of pre-treating and not pre-treating and why we have to do it. And again, I just wanted to relay pre-treating, even though it's in the background and it's one of the most important processes, it really is not that difficult. And that's sort of what we wanted to convey to the new direct-to-garment printer. There is a learning curve, but it really isn't that difficult. And as long as you have an open mind and are apt to learn, you can do direct-to-garment printing. It really isn't that difficult.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for pointing that out, which brings me to my next point, Brian. It's not difficult. And even though we had mentioned you don't have to pre-treat light garments, by spending the extra pennies, and it's literally pennies, to pre-treat those white garments by creating a more vibrant product and a more quality product for your customers, by spending those extra pennies, you'll actually get more repeated customers. And I always tell our clients, look, spend those pennies because it's a long investment in the long run. So that's absolutely a great point that you make there when it comes to pre-treating. And it's not a long process. It really isn't. And that's going to bring me to my next point. What are some ways we can pre-treat, Brian? And I know you're going to talk very passionate about this because there's obviously machine versus hand. So definitely give us a little bit of an overview of some ways you can actually pre-treat.
As we said, pre-treating is one of the most important aspects and processes of direct-to-garment printing. Now, again, like on a white shirt, you don't technically need to pre-treat, but as we've shown, it can help. But what are the processes of getting the pre-treatment from a liquid form onto the actual garment itself? A lot of times, for years and years and years, you could apply it with a Wagner type hand sprayer. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. This is the least expensive way you can get into pre-treating. And it's not bad, but there's a lot of issues with this. The first and main one is you really do not have an idea of how much pre-treatment you've applied to the shirt. I've had some people tell me that they can tell exactly how much is on the shirt just by looking at it, and I have to call that one out because you can't really do that. It depends on the manufacturer of the shirt and where it was manufactured. The same amount of pre-treatment on one shirt will look totally wet, and another shirt from the same manufacturer but a different country could end up being the same exact amount of pre-treat, but it'll look almost dry because it's soaked in. So doing the pre-treatment application with a tool like this is possible. And a lot of times there's all sorts of techniques, up and down and then left to right type of a thing. It can be done, but is it the best option? And for people starting out, and this isn't just because we manufacture equipment for applying pre-treatment, it's because we've run into this so many times, and you talk to people at trade shows or on the phone that are trying to do this, and they go, well, how much do I put on? And it's like, you don't have a good way of measuring how much pre-treatment that you're actually applying to that garment. So, having said that, you can use a Wagner type sprayer, but it's not the best tool. It would be like trying to turn a screw into a piece of wood with a butter knife. It's not the correct tool. The ideal way would be to use a screwdriver or even a drill with the correct drill bit attachment. So, that being said, one of the things that we offer for especially new beginners is a machine like the VIPER Mini. The VIPER Mini is a very small, compact, it's motorized, it gives you repeatable, consistent results simply by allowing it to run over the shirt, which we'll go into more detail a little bit later on. But it allows for you to set the speed, which will vary the amount of fluid lay down, and that'll be consistent from shirt to shirt. And that is key in direct-to-garment printing. Too much pre-treatment, too little pre-treatment can be bad. So you need to find that sweet spot, and it really isn't that difficult, but you need a consistent way to apply the pre-treatment.
Thank you for pointing that out. A couple of highlights there that I just want to emphasize there is number one, you're taking the guessing work out of pre-treating by using the VIPER Mini. And I'm going to tell you now, I don't pre-treat. I don't know how to pre-treat, but I've used and tested the VIPER Mini, and my prints in the office here turn out beautiful, and I've become an expert all of a sudden. So you take the guessing work out and you just get back into making money and marketing your shirts. And then at the same time, not only are you taking the guessing work out as to how much pre-treat to use, all that other jazz, you're also saving money because now you're not just eyeballing it. You know exactly the amount that's going into that shirt every single time, regardless of what shirt you're using. So those are great points there, Brian. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, I guess a couple of other questions that not questions, but something that always comes up is, and I know this is what everyone's thinking is, do you have to pre-treat your shirt right before you're about to print on it, or can you pre-treat a bunch of shirts in advance?
We do get that a lot of times. And it's funny, we've talked internally here just recently about a lot of best practices for pre treating. Ideally, pre treating right before you use the shirt and print it is probably the best thing that you can do. But yeah, you can pre treat a week or two ahead of time. But in doing so, you really want to minimize the amount of handling that goes into that shirt. Because what you're doing is creating a barrier on the shirt, and ideally, we want that barrier to be as pristine and perfect as possible, which will give us the best end print. So the more you handle the shirt, you're doing this, or you fold it up and put it in a box, or you even leave it sit out. Uh, People don't realize, if you've never been in this industry, you're working in a lint factory. You'll take a shirt, you'll shake it out. There's microfibers that fly off of that. You'll have lint dust everywhere in your room, your office. It's a pain in the butt. And the problem is all that lint can affect your final print. Now, a lot of people, you can be splitting hairs with this and say, well, it's not a big deal, or it is. But for me, trying to achieve the perfect print every time, which helps bring back customers and giving them a good product, is key and paramount to a good business and operating your business. So if you do pre-treat ahead of time, ideally keep it out of direct sunlight, out of extreme temperature conditions. I would say in a box, and preferably if you have a bag that you can put them inside that box, because cardboard boxes in and of themselves are, quote, clean, but there's a lot of contaminants too that can rub off, or maybe there was stuff in that box already. So yes, you can pre-treat ahead of time, but I have to go back to my standard joke. It's sort of like fish. It's always better fresh. And if you pre-treat and then go straight to the printer, there's a lot less that could go wrong as far as mishandling or contaminants that would get onto the shirt.
Awesome. Well, hey, Brian, as promised, this is a series for our customers who are watching this. So for our viewers. And so I want to keep this nice, short, and simple. I do want to invite everyone to watch video 2 that will be airing out as well soon. But more importantly, I do want to invite you to the live webinar, the end basically of the webinar series, which we will be doing, Brian and myself will be doing live. So I do want to invite you to that event, which is going to be March 24th. If you are in Pacific Standard Time, like myself, that's 11 a.m. If you're in East Coast time, that's with Brian, that's at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, guys, we're going to keep this for the first series, or for the first video here. We're going to keep it nice, short, and simple for you. Hopefully this has helped a little bit in regards to some of your pre-treat questions. But definitely watch video 2 with us. Join us with video 2. We're going to be sharing a little bit more information in regards to pre-treat. We'll be doing a live demo as well, and some more insider tricks and tips. Okay. Other than that, thank you so much. And Brian, thank you once again for your valuable partnership with the Ricoh Group.
We appreciate you having us on and being a part with Ricoh in this and just trying to help out the DTG community.